in that sector.
A sector that gives us a lot of money.
Reasons being that no, you know, most of these are leaders. I think they benefit more, you know, from the rot in the system. You know, now we are looking at a situation where the money that we have been spending to subsidize for petrol all these years, if you want to calculate it, is enough to build more than 3 different refineries in 3 different, you know, in the I think 6 geopolitical zones that we have in this country. The question now, why has our government not put so much interest in that? When this administration came into power, it told us that subsidy is gone. And ordinarily, one would have expected that the monies running over billions that has been used to subsidize petrol for Nigerians would have been channeled into bringing back all of our refineries to full operational capacity. I do not think it's a big deal, because we have countries in small, we have refineries working in small African countries. How have they been able to achieve that feat? It's because they have government that has the strong will to address that sector. So if our government, if the people in government are not benefiting from what we're experiencing today, I'm sure by now, the long-awaited Port Harcourt refineries that they told us that will be up and running even in December last year, and up to this moment, they keep telling us in 2 weeks' time, and it seems to be a 2 weeks of eternity. You know, that goes to show that something is amiss somewhere. Is it that there's a deliberate attempt by, you know, those in government to continue in this trajectory? Sadly so. Perhaps because of 1 or 2 things that they are getting from it. If not, I see no reason, after all the monies that have been earmarked, that have been voted into the maintenance and reconstruction and, you know, turnaround and all of that they call it, that they've done in Port Harcourt refinery in particular. And we are yet to see anything coming out from that refinery. As I speak with you, Nigerians are buying petrol for 900 naira, 850 naira. And it seems it's okay. Nobody's talking about it. You know, so that's why I said that if we are serious in this country as a government, you know, we will not be having this. We will not be having to spend so much resources to begin to go after people that are engaging in, you know, illegal refining activities. Because, like I've said before, if our refineries are working, if the government, after putting our refineries in order, then now begin to look into setting up of modular refineries, you know, then the patronage that these illegal refiners they get will be reduced to the barest minimum. Go to anybody of the petrol station, you'll be able to get kerosene. That I don't know how it will be possible for people living in the rural areas, people living in the shanties, who cannot afford gas, how to be able to survive.
That's another thing, because people who cannot use kerosene will always go back to gas.
And who can? Is anybody can anybody afford gas in the rural areas?
If you say you probably cannot afford gas and you want to use the hot plate, the electric cooker, there's another problem with NEPA. Like,
how do you know? Yeah, with power. You know, we are used to.
I have to take it back.
Well, we are used to. No, that's it's still in the minds and heads of people.
Yes, exactly.
You know, so there's no power to begin to contemplate the alternative. You know, like you call hot plate, another electric device that you can use to cook. But my major interest is even people that are living in shanties, people who are living in our village rural areas that are so are dependent on kerosene, and the only means of getting this kerosene is through the ones that is being refined by the coal fire people.
Now, Mufasa, let's look at this holistically. A lot of times when we look at the way out of the issue of crude oil theft in Nigeria, we'll always go back to let our refineries be functional so that this problem can stop. But we are not seeing that happen I don't want to prophesy that it will not happen anytime soon, but we've been told it will happen and we've not seen it. Are there other ways, are there other options or solutions towards putting an end or reducing the menace of crude oil theft in Nigeria?
Well, I think one major thing that we are not looking at is how to be self-reliant in this country. I am not saying that engaging in illegal refining activities and crude oil theft is a way to go. Nobody will want to endorse that because it amounts to economic sabotage.
Even environmental
degradation and all of the attendant effect of that. Then again, if the society, if the system can be reduced to the barest minimum, it's for our government to look at any possible way of bringing our refineries up to working capacity, because that's the only way out. If you don't have a means to get that which you need, it is a need to get that which you need, because there is no household that can do without some of these byproducts that comes from crude, the consequences of what they are putting us into. It is not our fault that we find ourselves in this part of the world. Something that is meant to be a blessing to Nigerians has now become a misery to Nigerians. I would have a very strong doubt if somebody had told me that there will come a time that we'll be buying petrol at the rate of 800 naira, 900 naira in this country. I'm telling you, it's coming to me as a rude shock. And nobody, labor is not saying anything about it, and the masses is meant to suffer. And it is unacceptable. There has to be a way to address
child. For participation and sponsorship opportunities, call us now 0806 673 8689 and 0810 634 1777.
This event is proudly sponsored by the Last Mall Hotel and Resort with Atlantic Television Network and 99.5 Wish FM Port Harcourt, Lesuka Event Center, Gate Place Hotel, 8 Ball Hotel and Lounge, Oma Studio, Osbia Table Water.
Remember that every child is unique. See you there. This event is managed by Pace Expressions Arts.
Special guest appearance.
Through the Sahara, we bring all sport news.
Thank you for standing by. The show continues. Atlantic Blowout. Back to the topic that I raised before we went on that short time out about how these should be handled. Do you think it is well handled by setting the facilities on fire?
Well, that's another kettle of fish entirely. First of all, already we are complaining about how degraded our environment is, and if the only thing that can be done is to set it on fire there and then we really need to start looking at other means of addressing that. One, the environment will be further polluted. Secondly, I also believe that there are people who live in those areas and they may want to go back to those places to continue their normal life. And if that place is set on fire, you see scraps of metal and some other dangerous equipment still lying there. It still poses a very grave danger. So if it was possible for the people, this time around we saw the army. At times, we also see the civil defense also going through for such operation. If it's possible for either of these agencies to come up with, another means of maybe removing those equipments without necessarily setting it on fire at that particular location, or see how to I really can't point a finger on any particular means, but
verified Facebook page on Wednesday criticized the federal government's action as misguided. He cautioned that if not promptly stopped, the initiative could have disastrous consequences for hardworking Nigerians who rely on their pensions after retiring from service. Professor, what's your take on this story? You've heard the reasons that the federal government has given towards this move, and then the counter or the objection by the former former presidential candidate. Yes, let's get to hear you, Atiku Abubakar.
The concerns raised by former Vice President Atiku Abubakar are very valid concerns, especially considering the fact that, you see, this is a country, should even be the case when we're having
the monies that were supposed to be for infrastructure, the budget allocation for infrastructure for 2024, we had to go back to it and we realized that it was 1.3 trillion naira thereabout. And then this money that is about to be taken from the
we are still looking at going ahead to begin to tinker with the pension funds meant for civil servants. But like I've said before, if the money that will be used will be replaced, then
you don't have a problem with it?
I don't have a problem with it, provided whatever they have said that they want to use the money for is actually what the money will be used for. The money shouldn't find its way into the private pockets of these politicians. We want to see accountability. We want to see transparency in government.
Let's go back to the budget allocation now. We already made mention of it earlier. If we're saying that the 20 trillion naira, if taken from the pension fund, if it will be used for what it was asked or it was said that it will be used for. What happened to the money that was allocated for that? Has it been used for that? If we're not sure.
Pension funds, you know, you cannot take money from the pension funds and not have a means of replacing such money, because it would certainly get to a time where the use of that money will be needed. It's pension. You know, and it is expected that the moment a civil servant, whether federal or state or even local government civil servants, expected that when they are done with their active year of service, they fall back on their pension. So if that time comes and you now begin to give stories of the money is not there, you use the money for something that the people cannot desire in the minds of the people. That's why you see people coming out to say that no, there's some ailments that they will need money to attend to. And if the monies are not there as at when due, it could be disastrous. You know, when you have a failing health challenge and you need money to address such health challenge, and the money is not there, is that not a disaster already?
All right.
So it is not, you know, out of place what the former vice president has said, that if you are taking this money from the pension fund, the first question is, why should it even be the contributory pension funds? Are there no other means of generating funds? We have been borrowing money since the inception of this particular government.
Okay, so since you're asking why, let's find out his reasons now. The reasons were stated. The reasons were duly stated. Can we go back to that now? The reasons were duly stated. Exactly why this, we had the finance minister, Wale Edu. He said the initiative forms a key part of Tinubu's broader reforms.
Can you?
At first, you're saying there's nothing wrong in, you know, taking this pension funds for infrastructure. And then on the other hand, you're saying, why the pension fund?
Good.
So
now,
like
no, the minds of the people. That all these while, monies have been earmarked. They have mentioned that they are going to borrow billions of dollars, of naira, to finance some of these things they are mentioning again. What has happened? How come we are not? These are the questions people ask. I'm not saying that there's anything wrong in doing that.
Why should we then say there's nothing wrong? If we haven't seen, if we have not seen them, we've not seen working for the other times when you have allocated funds and said this is what is fine, we've not seen working. So why do we now feel them taking this now should not be, is not wrong?
Ideally, I think you're not getting me correctly. Let me make, ideally, I said ideally there is nothing wrong. That the prevailing circumstances, with the rot in the system, with the lack of trust And you will not blame the people for having a lack of trust because they have not seen anything being done with what has been given to them before. So they will complain, they will agitate. That is the agitation. So that is why I said, ideally, the same thing, borrowing is borrowing.
Okay.
When you borrow, you pay a timeline of when this money will be paid back, because the money will definitely be meant for pensioners when the time comes for them to use their money.
All right, next story now. Peter Obi of the Labour Party has berated the Nigerian judiciary, saying that justice has been commodified and delivered in favor of the highest bidder. Nigerian judiciary today still, Mr. Obi said, this decline poses a significant threat to the future of Nigeria. Justice is increasingly commodified and delivered in favor of the highest bidder. Mr. Obi, former Anambra State Governor, has said this in a statement shared on his X account on Wednesday, recounting his keynote speech at the 5th Memorial of Justice Anthony Anyagolu, held at the Godfrey Okoye University, Enugu State, on Tuesday. Lamenting corruption in the Nigerian judiciary, Mr. Obi said judges like the late Mr. Anyagolu must be emulated for their exemplary service and other qualities. We must strive to emulate their dedication to integrity, fairness, respect for rule of law, transparency, humility, and the dispensation of justice.
I also know that one of the major setbacks in our judicial system is delayed justice. And like they popularly say that justice delayed is justice denied. There are a lot of cases, plethora of cases that ordinarily should have lasted the way it has lasted, in our own, in the life of our judiciary. But we see, incessant adjournment and adjournment and adjournment. Cases where you ordinarily should have expected, the judiciary to just come up with a verdict so that people will know the actual situation and position of things. But it seems to be a far cry. And we also have cases of jurisdiction judge to collect bribe in the course of carrying out his duty as a judicial officer. So that's why I said, if he has any organization, a body called the NJC, I will not begin to look into how serious they are in stamping out some of these bad eggs in the judiciary, but it is their sole responsibility to discipline erring judges if found wanting. Now that's why I said, if you know of any, that you can just write to the NJC with concrete evidence and follow it up. A corrupt judge is likened to a loaded gun ready to, because the moment you sit on that chair to dispense justice, whatever you say as you hit that gavel, goes a long way to deter.
March 2024 rate, which was 33.20%. Looking at the movements, the April 2024 headline inflation rate showed an increase of 0.49 percentage points when compared to the March 2024 rate. The National Bureau of Statistics that released the data on Wednesday attributed inflation rate in April 2024 was 40.53% on a year-on-year basis, which was 15.92 percentage points higher compared to the 24.61% rate recorded in April 2023. The rise in food inflation on a year-on-year basis was caused by increases in prices of the following items: gari, bread, wheat flour, pre-packed, semovita, which are under bread and cereals class. We have yam tuber, water yam, cocoa yam, other potatoes yam, and other tuber classes. We have coconut oil, palm kernel oil, vegetable oil, etc. Under oil and fats, dried fish, sardines, catfish dried, mudfish dried, under fish class.
An humble wage, of, let's use the minimum wage for instance, of 30,000, 35,000. And you are expecting that individual to rely on his salary to be able to take...
Now, before you go there, remember, this is beginning to look like the crude oil case.
Okay.
The fact that you have crude oil in your land and then fuel is expensive. The fact that you have crude oil and yet diesel is expensive, kerosene, you can't find it. It is beginning to look like that because we have the land to farm and some of us are farmers. So why is food expensive when you have the land, you have everything you need to farm as land? It might not be everything because some people might start talking about the equipment not being available. So yes, now let's get to the factors behind it.
Good. Now, you talk about having the land.
Yes.
Let us also look, those are dangerous headers. I don't feel safe to go to my farm. It's definitely going to affect the output at the end of the day. And if there is shortage of these products, of course, the price will go high. You understand me? The inflation rates will go up. People won't be able to afford the little that the few farmers that would agree to pay taxes to bandits and terrorists, because that is what we hear, that the few ones that were allowed to farm, without the fear of being kidnapped, without the fear of being killed, they pay taxes to bandits. And you cannot tell the actual amount because it is illegal and it's something that if you are paying today is not fixed. It can go up anytime. It doesn't have control.
So
that is one of the factors.
So there are reports that people pay taxes to bandits?
I'm sure it is there in public domain that farmers pay taxes to bandits for them to be able to have access to their farmland. Exactly my point. That is one of the factors. The other factor is the means of conveying these few products that they've struggled to get out from the cumbersome process that they have to pass through to farm. How do you ferry these products to the markets? Both the markets in the north and even down here in the south. You talked about petroleum products. How much is the cost of diesel that these heavy-duty vehicles they use? You can't buy diesel. A liter of diesel is running off about 1,000 something, thereabouts. Then, if you've been able to get the products on these vehicles, then those roadblocks that you see on the road, different kinds of task force, everybody is a task force, nowadays in this country, because the youths, the only way that politicians can settle them is to give them a certain task and constitute them into a task force. If you are going on the highway, you see them. Every 4 poles, you see roadblocks, task force, collecting monies from these people that bring food down here. That is on the angle of the task force. Then the police. So these factors would definitely lead to where we are today as a people. But most importantly, security, availability, killed, for reasons best known to them, and the government is not doing anything about it. So if you as a farmer, a small-scale farmer that just want to farm for you and your immediate family, so you can't go to your farm because of fear of being attacked, and also these are the issues that government need to look into. You don't just come out to make statements as a government. You also need to show working. I do not have the wherewithal. I do not have what it takes to protect myself.
So it's not
as
a regional problem then. It's everywhere. It's the same reason it's happening there. It's the same reason. It's not regional.
Yeah. That's why I said security has to be holistic. We know that the bulk of what we consume here comes from the north. That doesn't mean that we don't even have farmers here. When we talk about farming, we are also referring to those people who are into fish farming.
Sure.
And even pirates don't even allow our fishermen to operate, freely. Even recently, we heard that pirates are even paying certain amount of money. Fishermen rather are paying certain amount of money to pirates.
Even we also have the oil issue.
We also have the environmental degradation that is occasioned by the illegal refining activities. All these are issues that government needs to address. It is not for the farmers to come out to say that, we have the capacity to do that. If they have the capacity, I'm sure they would have done something about it. But the apparatus of state resides in our government, resides in the state. And if they have not shown capacity, they have not shown interest and sincerity to address this matter, we will keep complaining about it. Is a recipe for disaster, because it will get to a point where the ordinary average Nigerians, if they have nothing to feed on, they will be left with no other option than to feed on the rich and the aristocrats. Right. And we hope it doesn't get to that level.
I know while we were explaining the factors that have led to the food inflation in Nigeria, at one point or the other, you mentioned something I feel the government should do, but I want us to look at the solution holistically now, focusing on it.
Okay.
How the government can come in to curb this problem of food inflation.
How the government can come in is what I've said before, and I will say it again. They need to do things that would give the farmers the confidence that they can go about their duty, without being harassed, without being attacked, without being pursued. The government need to look at the angle of the activities of these so-called tax force. Very, very important. That is key. You that is going to the bush market, that woman that goes to the bush market pays transport to go there. And the driver that carries that woman also will add the extra amount that he spends on petrol and gas and all of that. So it all trickles down. And the burden falls on the, the buyer, the consumers that goes to the market to buy these things to be able to take care of his family. All these are issues that the government need to look into. These are the possible solutions on the roads that, make things difficult for the drivers of these heavy duties that convey farm produce to this part of the country.
All
Very
right,
important.
let us look at the very last story we would actually see before we move on today. Okay, at this point, yes, this story is on labor and the minimum wage. And this is a very critical topic in Nigeria currently. Everyone's, lending a voice to it. The organized labor, comprising Nigeria Labour Congress and Trade Union Congress, have rejected the ongoing minimum wage negotiations after the government and the organized private sector made what they described as ridiculous offers of 48,000 naira and 54,000 naira respectively. According to a source who is a leader of the TEC in the meeting, while the government did not provide any data to back up its proposal, unlike organized labor, OPS on the other hand said none of its members pay less than 78,000 naira. The TEC source said Labour presented first and we stood on our 615,000 naira proposal, after which the OPS presented 54,000 naira. Later, the government proposed 48,000.